Uh, there is one part of addiction that we haven't spoken about yet. Bismillah wal alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Just a heads up before anyone asks why I started, or I didn't start with the basmala like I usually do, is because YouTube will pick up the language from the start of the video. If I start on English, it's gonna transcribe the entire video on English. If I start on Arabic, it's gonna transcribe it on that, which is not good for people finding the video. So next time we're gonna do this, inshallah. I'm gonna first mention the topic on English, then I'm gonna start, inshallah, with the actual video. So we're talking about we talked obviously on this channel. We talked about addiction and stuff a lot of times before. We talked a lot on addiction to pornography. We talked about addiction to drugs. We talked about addiction to alcohol. We had talked about and addiction to smoking. So we obviously talked about these things. But today I want to speak about one topic that in this issue is a very important topic that I would say, haven't really talked about in depth yet. And yes, we have. Or yes, I have mentioned this when I was talking to people individually on these issues, which, as we always say, if you have an issue with any of these things, you can always text me, inshallah. You'll find my Telegram channel in the description, where you can message me, inshallah, on the Telegram channel or on the bot. So what I mean is that there's one issue that we've never talked about, and this is the most important one probably. We've always said, for addiction, so the main thing is dua, dua, and then and then being sure that Allah will respond to your dua, right? There's one more thing. A lot of people say that this doesn't help in addiction, and they are wrong with this. We've talked about before. I don't know how I should say this or how I should start this, but we've talked before about the science behind addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol or smoking or pornography or so. We've talked about the science, and I've talked about the things that I disagree with on the science of addiction, and so we've spoken about these things a lot. But we all know, I'm sure or those who want to learn about this topic, either because they want to learn to help people, or because they themselves have issues with it and they want to learn so they can leave it. We know the science that is behind this issue, the science of it changes your brain and these things. And we've talked about that before in the channel, as I said, as I clarified before, I don't agree with most of that. Yeah, it could changes your brain. Okay, so what? Yeah, it makes it difficult to leave. Okay, so what? And is that more powerful than making dua to Allah Azza wa Jalla? No. So we always talked about dua, but there is one thing I always forgot to mention. And this is always mentioned by people who don't understand how addiction works. يعني مشايخ or so that don't understand how addiction works. And they're not wrong in it. They're not wrong in it. The people who, sorry, but the car. The people who always speak about the science behind this, they're always like the mashayikh are wrong on this sense. And they told the mashayikh don't understand. Yes, it's not. The mashayikh only go from a. I'm sorry about the cars again. I'm going to try to leave the street. The mashayikh only go from the side of ad-din, and the others only go from the side of like science. And while I'm not saying that science completely is trash, we can gain from it as long as it doesn't go against the deen. However, we need to obviously put the deen first, right? I don't think anyone disagrees with me on that. I mean, anyone that ascribes to Islam. Because of this, I'm trying to find actually something here that subhanallah, wrote, that the Sheikh wrote on this issue before. نعم, here. This is the issue where when you ask the Sheikh, he tells you, when you read the ayat about the fire and that you must fear Allah Azza wa Jal and learn about the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal so that you can fear Allah more. And of course, this is correct without a shadow of a doubt. And as I said, unfortunately, I mean, I've talked about this here, but I've not mentioned every time where I've talked about this issue. I've always mentioned dua. I've always mentioned dua, and I briefly mentioned this, but because I feel like I've neglected this previously, I need to talk about it here, which is the issue about that you fear Allah Azza wa Jal. The people of science, they tell you, La ilaha illallah. I'm sorry, I'm leaving the street because of the cars. I'm sorry. The people that only go from science, or the kuffar therapists and so on, they can tell you fearing Allah doesn't help. Sorry. Okay. Well, the kuffar are going to say that because they are kuffar. But I mean the Muslims who only go from a science standpoint, right? They tell you that. Yes, of course, fearing Allah helps and so on, but you don't understand how addiction works, and your brain changes, and this neuroplasticity and so on. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. I'm sorry about the cars. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. It's so lousy. But they tell you because your brain changes, you cannot leave. It's impossible to leave. And some people, they go as extremists. They tell you that you need to go to a doctor. And while this in very extreme cases I would advise on this, I would definitely not advise this as a normal thing as they do. For now, subhanallah, and even in extreme cases, it's very easy to change this with the methods that we mentioned in other videos. As I said, I have a playlist on the channel called the Addiction. If you have this issue, go through that one. Inshallah, ibn Ghini. طيب. Alhamdulillah, we've helped a lot of ikhwa leave this issue. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of ikhwa that we're currently also helping. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to aid them. Subhanallah, they come and tell you that fear Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't help. I'm gonna ask you something. If this entire thing about it is not physically possible for you to leave it because your brain changes, if that is true, according to that logic, according to that thought process, if your parents would open the door on you doing this, you would not be able to stop. You would continue it as if they're not there, right? And this is what it means. Because, if fearing Allah doesn't help, well, a'yadh billah, according to what they say, and then, because my brain changes, I cannot physically leave it, then the same should be, of course, I'm not comparing Allah Azza wa Jal to the parents or so, no, a'yadh billah, but I'm saying I'm comparing the fact that he fears that his father sees him, or that his mother sees him, or that his siblings see him. So when someone he is doing this sin, and then he sees his parents come in on him, as an example. Oh wait, there's a cat here. And then he sees his parents come in on him. Is he gonna continue? No, obviously not. But he's not gonna continue doing that, obviously. However, so then why can we say that? Well, why do they think we can say that? When you fear Allah, this doesn't help. Well, clearly, when you fear your parents, it helps. So, I'm sure you know what I mean. Obviously, Allah Azza wa Jal is high above everyone and everything else. Fearing Allah should be more, or obviously, it must be more than fearing your parents. Because of this, when you learn about Allah Azza wa Jal, when you learn about the names of Allah, and you learn about the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you learn about the fire and why you should stay away from it, and that this sin leads to it, then wallahi, this is one of the most important, or one of the best ways to get away from this sin. But I always say, especially if you're deep into it, you cannot just have one thing and do it and then think that it will fix it, because a lot of people do that. No, that's not correct. You need to combine everything. As we said, a lot of the issue, I don't want to say cures, but a lot of the things that we said that will help you stop this, as we said, the most number one and two, the most important things, number one is ad-du'a, that you make dua that Allah Azza wa Jal removes this from you, and not number two, or you make that while you are while you're sure that Allah Azza wa Jal will answer your dua. And now number two is this, that you learn about Allah Azza wa Jal, that you fear Allah Azza wa Jal more. Allah Azza wa Jal, when he was speaking about the munafiqeen, he said that they hide from the people, but they do not hide from Allah, because obviously they cannot hide from Allah Azza wa Jal. يستخفون من الناس ولا يستخفون من الله وهو معهم إذ يبيتون ما لا يرضى من القول. And they cannot hide from Allah, and Allah is with them. Allah is with them in His knowledge. And He sees them, and He knows what they're saying, while they say things that do not please Allah Azza wa Jal. Meaning that they do things when they're alone that they would not want the people to see them do. And of course, as we've said, you should obviously, or it is more important that you fear Allah Azza wa Jal than that you fear anyone else, because this is Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is why learning about the sifat of Allah is one of the key elements to make you fear Allah Azza wa Jal more, because you cannot fear that which you do not know. And that's also why Allah Azza wa Jal so many times in the Quran tells us about the fire and about the punishment of the fire, so that we see what it is, and so that we take the steps that we need to take to stay away from it. So because of this, Allah tells us about the fire, and this is why Allah tells us about paradise, so that we can do the actions that bring us closer to it. I'm gonna read through what the Shaykh said. He said, the Shaykh was talking about that he was commenting on someone who said the addict to pornography does not benefit from being reminded, does not benefit from being reminded about Allah, that he should fear Allah. So the Shaykh is responding to this. He's saying that this is a new claim that has begun to spread, that religious, and is this what we said, that that you remind people of paradise and of the fire, and so that this does not make them stop this sin. And the reason, because he's speaking most about pornography, so is obviously, the same reason why we talk about it a lot is because it is so spread out. It's because it is so easy to access. It's because it's free. The Wi-Fi obviously is not free, but like everyone has a phone, everyone has Wi-Fi. Obviously the phone is not free as well, but but what I mean is that everyone has easy access to it. This is why it's such a big drug. This is why the danger of it is so big. I'm sorry if there's like wind here. Trying to put the mic close to my mouth here, but I forgot my mic at home, so I'm recording from my phone. So in short, He's saying that this is a new claim that people spread or that people say. طيب. He said because such a person they do not benefit such a person because they are surrounded by circumstances that made this be that made this be that made this behavior inevitable. And they believe that خلاص this thing is so يعني you're so deep into the sin that you physically cannot stop. And your circumstances make the sin impossible to leave. A lot of people, yeah, I'm not gonna go deep into why people start to watch porn or so. We've talked about that before, so don't go into it here. But basically, whether it is reason 1, 2, 3, or 4, people always say, as long as this reason is here, I cannot stop. And this is not true. طيب. This is not true. Plus, if you really cannot stop, then just throw away your phone. I know it's easier said than done. But if you really, really care about stopping this and improving yourself and leaving it for Allah Azza wa Jal, then cancel your Wi-Fi, buy a flip phone and buy a SIM card for it. Install your save your friends' numbers on it. خلاص, then you physically cannot go back to the sin أصلا because you don't have a phone. Throw your laptop away. طيب. subhanallah, if you really, really, really want to, and as well, this is why I see a benefit. Yeah, this is all commentary on the side. That's why I see a benefit as well in iOS, because I believe iOS is like you can block the content. You can block this content with a pin code. So you could tell someone to put like a pin code for you. I mean, they're probably gonna ask you why you don't just do it, but just tell them, it's to control my TikTok usage or so. I want this is to block TikTok because I waste my time on it, right? And بس يعني then inshallah Azza wa Jal, they will do it for you, and خلاص, then you can no longer unlock it. But you don't need to throw away your phone. Obviously, throwing away your phone is best. Yeah. But I mean, I probably wouldn't even have a phone if it was not for dawah and so on. يعني I believe generally that one should not have a phone أصلا, because Allah understand, there's so many things to distract you on your phone. If you have a phone, obviously, if you don't, I mean, if you don't have this issue that you go back to because of your phone, طيب, then but I'm not gonna talk about this here. Now we're talking about the one who has this issue. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us and you. He should be more. He should be more important for him to not have a phone, because this phone leads him back to the sin. طيب, now if someone has a house close to a store that sells cigarettes, and this is what always leads him to go back, wouldn't we tell him to try to move, or at least to try to get like a hotel room if he can, for like 2 months or so, and stay there, uh so that he could and then when خلاص, when he doesn't want cigarettes anymore, he can go back to his house, or just move. I've talked to people that have issues with cigarettes and so on, and the guy, subhanallah, I went to him one time. I went with him. He was with me at work when so at work, sometimes people would ask him to buy for them because he was free, and a lot of times would ask for them to go and they would ask him to go and buy for him chocolate or so. So he would go to the store that was close to our work and buy for them chocolate. Yeah. And at that time, I didn't know this, but so one day I went with him, and because I was done with my work, and I saw him here, and before he went to get the chocolate and the food, he went to get a cigarette, and he smoked it the entire time until we were back at work. Of course, I told him like 20 times, bro, stop this and so on. And he tells me, well, wallahi, I want to stop it every time I go back and so. For the example why I'm trying to give it here is because this guy, this akh يعني, Allah yahdi, the reason why he would always go back is because of the store. I would tell him, bro, you just don't go and get the food for them. Don't go and get the food and the chocolate for them. But the issue is, khalas, they've been used for him to do this favor for them. So if he just comes randomly one day and says, I'm not going to do it anymore, obviously they're going to be mad at him. But you need to do what it takes for you to leave this sin, bro. And leaving the sin is more important than what people say about you. And this is the same thing with your phone. If people think that you're insane for leaving your phone or for buying a flip phone, so be it, يعني. But is that more important, or the fact that you leave the sin? And this is not what this video is about, يعني, but I thought I would comment on it for a benefit, يعني, inshallah azza wa jal. Obviously, not in all cases you need to like get a flip phone if you have this addiction or so. But I mean, if you're like deep into it, if these people that say I've tried everything and nothing helps and so, and that would probably be like the last resort before you would go to like a doctor, right? Even though, as I said before, I don't like going to a doctor on these issues, يعني, because a lot of the doctors, they go only from a scientific standpoint, and they don't care about the deen. Especially if you go to a kafir doctor أصلا, then obviously he's not going to care about the deen even more, يعني. فالله المستعان. As I said, you can always reach out to me, inshallah. What I'm trying to say is, subhanallah, I'm going to continue reading what the Sheikh said in a second, but I want to finish commenting on this. يعني, blocking the apps, blocking the websites, blocking the people that will lead you back to the sin is a good thing. But this is not the only thing because you will always find a way. You will always find a way. I've talked about this before tons of times. You will always find a way. If you really want to go back to the sin, you will always find a way to it, right? If you so you we need to fix the issue from the root cause and not just cut it off. Like if someone is now doing drug, or I'm sorry, someone is now doing cigarettes, right? Yeah, we could remove the cigarettes from him, but he will always find a way, even if we go to all of the stores that sells cigarettes in the city and give them $100 so that they do not sell to him. He's still going to find a friend that will give him or so. This is what I mean. So the same thing is with this issue. طيب. ف just blocking is not gonna help. I mean, I really didn't want to talk about this here because, as we said, we've talked about this a lot of times before. I didn't want to turn this one into like talking about this, but I thought Allah understand. Sometimes my thoughts go away from the asal. Like Ibn Taymiyyah, a lot of times he would speak about a certain issue and then he would see benefit in expanding on another issue that has to do with it. So he would expand on it and then go back to the main issue, which is what I am trying to do here. And I always try to do that, and for the benefit of the ikhwah. I don't know, probably a lot of people will say that, I expand too much or something. I don't care. If you don't want to listen, then just don't. يعني, subhanAllah. Anyways, يعني, speaking about the going back to the main topic. Here, so the Sheikh said the claim contradicts the established principles of the Quran and the Sunnah, which affirm that every sinner should be admonished. Admonished يعني that he should be reminded of Allah Azza wa Jal. He should be reminded of the pair of paradise and the fire, and so should be admonished and that admonition benefits him and that he will gain from it. He said, if we rephrase the matter as the warnings of the Quran and the Sunnah do not benefit the addict, the ugliness of this idea would become clearer. I just realized when I translated this, I made a mistake here. He said, but let me explain calmly, where did this idea come from and what are its problems? I'm sure a lot of these, what the Sheikh will mention here, we already mentioned. I mean, I didn't read this for like I didn't. Last time I read this was like 2 months ago, so I don't remember obviously what he said here. But we'll see. Inshallah. He said there is a well-known thesis among many Western psychologists that drug addiction and any other type of addiction is just a disease and not a personal fault. He said, just as you cannot blame someone for catching cold, you should not blame him for addiction. Obviously, this is very stupid. But we talked in the start where this comes from. We talked in the start about where this comes from. This thought of, your brain changes and you cannot leave it and it's impossible. And, you're going to have to be like, I don't know, يعني, who's, who, Superman or so to fix it. Or as, some people, they tell you need to go and you're like insane if you have a porn addiction. So no, it's a sin, bro. Yeah, it's a sin. Yes, it is obviously very problematic, very addictive, if we could use that word. Right? There's a lot of issues that come from it. It leads to different sins, whether it is addiction to pornography, as we said, or addiction to drugs, or smoking, or alcohol, any type of addiction, or even addiction to your phone, bro. Yeah, that also is definitely an addiction, right? And there's also addiction that we've spoken about a lot because these main two things, addiction to your TikTok and so on, porn, these are the main two things that the ikhwa fall into. Yani, may Allah Azza Jal protect us. So what I'm saying is that, subhanAllah, هذا, this idea that the one who's addicted, he's like, he's sick, right? This is insane. I mean, I understand the scientific standpoint, but again, I don't agree with everything that they say, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. نعم. He said that they criticize laws that impose punishments on addicts and consider them ineffective. This line of thinking can reach an advanced level of absurdity, such as claiming that I don't think I can say this word, a serial killer merely has a genetic defect and therefore should not be punished, but simply placed in a cage like a predatory animal. Subhanallah. I want to comment on this. A lot of serial people who end other people, end them. Uh, they, obviously I can't say the word because I'm gonna post this on YouTube, inshallah. And if YouTube detects that I said this word, they might, make the video like restricted or so. A lot of them, like this one, I don't remember his name. Subhanallah, Jeffrey Dahmer, or there's another one as well. This guy who would and you do it to young girls. What was his name? Subhanallah, he was Ted Bundy, I think. These types of people, a lot of times, they start with porn, with porn, and then they go up. When porn is not enough for them anymore, he goes to real girls and he does what he sees in those movies. They're obviously fake, and that while they do it, they are under drugs and so on. And he wants to see that in real life. He wants to get that rush in real life because he obviously doesn't get the rush out of that as he did at the start. So he goes and does that to real girls, and then to increase the rush, he goes and then ends them, and does other things that I cannot describe on YouTube. But there are a lot of documentaries on this Ted Bundy guy. I've honestly, I think I've watched like one, and I've watched clips from another one, but I think it's very interesting. If if you're someone who is not an addict to pornography and you want to learn about this, you should look into. If you are an addict, you should definitely not look into. Just an advice. But obviously, a lot of these documentaries have music and images of girls and so obviously, a lot of time. Try to stay away from those. So what I was trying to say is that if we look into the psychology of such people, we'll find that they, a lot of times, start from that point. it's not even just addiction to pornography. It's even addiction, which I also I've seen. There was one brother, Allah he's not an and he does have an addiction to pornography or so, but he has an addiction to like TikTok. But has a lot of knowledge. يعني Allahumma barik about these issues. Uh, this brother, I spoke to him a lot about these issues, and we spoke also about this one. Alhamdulillah, a lot of these things I'm saying here I've gained from him. We spoke about this issue of these people that watch violent videos. I'm not speaking about violent porn. I'm speaking about violent, يعني gore. So they are the ones who tend to later on turn into serial K, because خلاص they've seen it in the videos. They don't, يعني when you see it at the first time, you get that rush, right? There's a lot of people when they see those types of videos for the first time, he's disgusted. He doesn't want to go to it again. And then there's the type of person who he loves that so much, especially the one who has a reason, or sorry, not reason, but like who has he has a defect in his deen, he has a defect in his life, he has a bad relationship with people around him or so. Uh, and a lot of people, they use porn or they use gore or so as an escape, or they use smoking or drugs as an escape. So I'm saying that kind of person, he's more vulnerable to turn this into a compulsive act that he always goes back to, right? لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. فبasically, obviously, I'm not saying that the one who, because the science, they always tell you, as we've spoken about this before, as long as you still have that problem with your family or so, you can never stop. Or so we're partner to that before, just so no one misunderstands what. But what I'm trying to say here is that the one who watches gore, and so he's never gonna get that rush which you got at first. And the first time this for gore, this for drugs, this for porn, this is for alcohol, this for everything that has this kind of nature that makes you addicted to it. He's never gonna get that rush again that he got the first time he saw it. Even if he leaves for like a year and it comes back to it, he's not gonna get that rush again. So you're always in a constant attempt to try to get that same degree that you got at the first time. But you're always constantly trying to get back to that degree that you were at, and you're never going to be able to do it. Which is why you're always going to increase the amount, and you're always going to increase how deep the things that you do are. And to take an example, طيب gore, we haven't spoken about it a lot, which is why I'm speaking about it now. You start with a small video of someone, having, obviously, I probably cannot say anything that occurs in those videos on here, but you start with a video of someone, يعني of a small wound, يعني, or so, and then you don't get that rush anymore that you got at the start. So then you always try to deepen the things that you watch. And this, as we said, this is the same, and this is why drunk addicts, they always go deeper, they always take more, they always take it more often. Maybe and this is why smoking, it starts with smoking once because your friends told you to, or because your friends were doing it. It starts with that, and then a year after, you're gonna find yourself you cannot live except with 20 packets a week. Actually, I know someone who would do like 20 packets a day. It's not a joke. Wallahi. Subhanallah. Which is insane. Yeah. I'm assuming as well, obviously, alhamdulillah, because I've never done these things. I cannot really know, but يعني I'm assuming that smoking is like chewing a gum. Yani it's like at first you're gonna get that rush because you're still starting the, you know, cigarette, and afterwards, and even on the same one, you will not, you will feel it less. This is what I'm assuming. Yani like, you know, when you chew gum or so at the start, you know, you get all of the flavor of it in it, in your, and then after the flavor leaves, right? Maybe this is the same. I don't know if anyone here has smoked before. And I mean, you probably shouldn't expose yourself, but yeah, just okay. Don't say it. Yeah. But يعني, well, I understand. What I'm trying to say is that, subhanAllah, all of these quote unquote addictions or compulsive behaviors, all of them work the same. It is one time I'm bored, someone shows me it. I mean, this is why porn, by the way, is so bad, because it's not that common that people know that it's bad for you, and it's more common that people see it because it's on the entire internet. It's on TikTok, right? Which is an app that everyone obviously has. ف you will start with that small part, and then obviously after that you'll go deeper into it, right? This is one of the reasons why that one is so common. But of course the same is for everything else that we talked about. طيب لا حول ولا قوة. Now, while I say this, subhanAllah, some guy stand beer, a beer, a beer, a beer, a beer behind me, takes out a cigarette and subhanAllah, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. It's like just smelling the smoke walking by is insane, but it's like, how can you put that inside? لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. May Allah protect us. هذا لا حول ولا قوة. يعني الشاهد يعني الشاهد أستغفر الله الله المستعان. هذا I don't know what I was saying, but that smoke pushed me off. SubhanAllah. It's like, you know, I recall even one time I was like don't know where I was, SubhanAllah, but I was like in I was in a house, and the guy who was, yani the house was not done. The guy who was building, he just lit his cigarette, bro, and he was smoking inside. Bro, I was like, bro, yani if you really wanna do it, just go outside, you know? It's like, why do you want to kill me with your cigarette, bro? So insane, subhanAllah. Anyways, يعني ف subhanAllah. I have a neighbor as well that he smokes, yani, but when he smokes, he always goes outside because he doesn't smoke inside, so his house doesn't smell like smoke, and also so because I think like it changes the colors of your walls or so. I don't know, but I've heard people say, yani, over time the chemicals and so do. But in short, you know, what I'm trying to say is that what the sheikh, or we're trying to comment on what the sheikh said about that this doesn't help, is that this is not like a disease. It's not like, you know, someone, he just comes and gets a cold, someone gets a virus, and now they cannot do anything about it. No, this is something in your brain, bro. You just need to change the way that you think. Not number one, you know, there's a new way to approach the issue of addictions and so, which is that you just need to change the way that you think. You need to change that it's easy to leave. And while I've said this, I don't mean it in the same way as they do, which I don't know if I clarified this clearly before or not. I don't mean change your way like they say, you know, it's all inside your brain, this and that. I'm saying that through dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. And as the Prophet he said that you need to make dua while you're sure that Allah will respond to you. This is what I mean with that. When you make dua, you know for a fact that Allah Azza Jal will respond to you and that Allah Azza Jal will make it easy for you to leave that sin. And then you start to take the rest of the steps that will make it easier for you to leave that sin. So the number one thing is the dua. Khalas, you're making 100% sure I will never go back to this again. And then you take the necessary steps that will aid you in that you never go to it again. So we said number one is dua. Then that you learn about the deen, learn about Aqeedah, learn about Allah Azza Jal, learn about the fire, paradise, and so this is what we're breathing here. And then do the other things. If you want to block your phone, block it. If you want to, throw away your phone and get a flip phone, do it. Right? Especially these things, if you've tried a lot and you cannot, right? If you think that telling someone close to you will make it easier for you to leave, it will make them support you in leaving it, do it. Obviously, it's not the first thing you should do because you should never expose your sins. But if you think that you will gain from that, then do it. Right? In that case, it will be allowed for you to expose your sin to someone if you believe that they can give you advice on it or that they could support you on how to leave it, right? But this is what I'm saying is that there's so many things you can do. A lot of people, they try for a week to leave it and then they give up. And after they increase it more. No, this is a fight that you always do against shaitan and against yourself and against your desires. This is what we spoke about in the last video about controlling your anger as well. We talked about that you need to learn to control yourself. When you control yourself in what is allowed, it will be easy for you to control yourself in sins, or to control yourself from sins. طيب. Because of that, learn to control yourself in anything, even if it's from something that is allowed and the default. Continue reading what the Sheikh said, and then we're going to end this here, inshallah. He said they criticize laws. Okay, we spoke about it. We read this. In this view, he's not blameworthy. He merely has a genetic flaw. I mean, in our series about the West, we spoke about this as well. It's like, according to the Western principles, aslan, a serial K is not a bad thing, aslan. Right? It's not it's not the topic here. He said these theses mix philosophy with emotion, preconceived beliefs with certain. Again, this is something where I made a mistake while translating. I think I should have wrote and these theses mix philosophy with emotion and preconceived beliefs with certain experimental findings. That would be better, I believe. He said this is common in Western context, yet many people in our societies accept it as unquestionable. طيب. He said experimental science has its own dilemmas when it comes to human sciences, since they do not submit to fixed laws like natural sciences. Many of them view human beings as mere machines. The majority deny free will. This was discussed by the author of the book, تحرير العلم من الأوهام. He said even Richard Dawkins expressed a similar idea in his book, The Selfish Gene. this book, subhanAllah. Allah yahdi this guy. And in his debate with Deepak Chopra, he alluded to this meaning. Chopra mocked him by saying, then why are we here if we have no free will? Why are we debating? Right? If you don't have free will and you're just a machine, then why do we disagree in things? If we're just machines, do we see that machines disagree? If I have my calculator and I write in it 1 + 1, is mine going to say 2 and yours is going to say 6? Obviously not. If yours says 6, then you can throw it in the trash. He said, like any sophistic idea, it is used selectively. For example, they say that they say they say they say they say homosexuality is genetic. This is what the West says. This is what the kuffar of the West say. That the fact that you're gay is because you're gay. I mean, I don't think there's a better way to say it. This is what they say. And if you're gay, then you're just born gay. You're gay. You cannot do anything about it. Obviously, it's not true. There's a lot of factors again that lead to this. All I just want to mention on the side, I have an audio called talking about or thoughts about homosexuality and delaying marriage and pornography, and that one I spoke about the link about these three. These three are all linked, but yeah, not the way that a lot of people would think. So go back to that. I don't even remember what I said in it. But what I remember is that I said in it, I spoke about that pornography leads to being gay. And I spoke about, I spoke there. I'm gonna have to mute because there's a lot of girls passing by, so I'm gonna leave here. And you guys, don't want you guys to hear this yet. So I hope I'm far away now. Anyways, may Allah guide them. SubhanAllah. Wait, my phone's ringing. So what I'm saying is that SubhanAllah, I forgot what I was saying. No, I was speaking about being gay. If someone takes this out of context, that will be bad. As I said, one of the main causes for being gay is porn. Like again, go back to the audio. I'm not gonna go into details here yet. I'm gonna have to go back to the street because this pathway is problem. There's a lot of stuff. You guys know what I mean, yani. Germany, Anyways, so subhanallah, he said, for example, they say that homosexuality is genetic. In reality, according to their own principles, nothing falls outside of genetics. Dawkins himself admitted in his book, The Science Delusion, that even if homosexuality were genetic, it will not be deterministic. I'm not going to, the Darwin actually, I'm sorry, not Darwin, sorry. Dawkins هذا يعني especially he has his books, The Science Delusion. He has another book called The God Illusion, I think, something along those lines. I haven't read it because I haven't really looked that much into responding to atheism, this topic, though I really want to look into it. Obviously don't read the book or don't even think about it, but what I mean is, when you read some of the things that my tongue's foul, that those people say in those books, you will be shocked how the West can respect these people, because there's a lot of things that the West disagree with. But as an example, Dawkins is actually one of the atheists that respect themselves. What I mean with this is that he actually respects his beliefs, and he is a real atheist, because there's a lot of people that are atheists, but they don't want to accept the bad issues or the issues that they see as bad in atheism, right? Which is that you cannot objectively, as an example, prove that being a serial K is bad, right? And because there's no moral compass on it. In fact, technically, for atheists, being a serial K is something that is good if you are doing it to people that want to end. Because in the end, you're just, for atheists, there's nothing after death. You're just black, as they say, or as and this is why I say that a lot of atheists, or a lot of people who claim to be atheists, they do not actually understand atheism, or they willingly do not understand because they don't want to understand it. They don't want to know the actual beliefs that they have. But if they come and tell you that when you ask them what is after death, in atheism, there is nothing, obviously. We can go a long talk about why, but again, this is not about atheism. And as I said, I've not read a lot about atheism and so on, or I've not read into depth. Obviously, especially because of the place where I live, alhamdulillah, I know a lot about them. But not enough so that I can make like a serious whatever. So, but what I mean is that they cannot prove to you that it is wrong to end someone. They cannot. They cannot prove anything, Aslan. But what I mean is that, especially in this thing, because you're just sending him to blackness. In fact, you cannot even prove that being sad is wrong, or sorry, that being sad is bad. What if being sad is actually a good thing? It's like, so you cannot objectively prove anything. Two atheists were just bacteria that move, or atoms that have come together to form in a certain way, to move in a certain way. And this is why I'm saying Dawkins is one of the most, the atheists that respect their beliefs the most. Because he does not fear saying, the other one as well, what was his name, subhanAllah? Jordan Peterson. He is also one of the atheists who obviously Jordan Peterson and Hada. The Dawkins are not the same, obviously, but they're from those who they know their actual beliefs and they're not afraid to say. But as I said, not like a lot of atheists, who they say they're atheists because it sounds cool, but they don't actually know what they believe, or they don't actually know what they actually say. And when you tell them things that atheists say, or that real atheist scholars like Dawkins or these people say, he's gonna tell you, no, this is insane, when this is what he needs to, or that what he should believe in, based on what not should. I'm not saying that you should believe in it. I'm saying that he, based on what he's saying, this is what he should actually be saying. If you want to say that you're an atheist, this is what you should say, and not be another type of atheist because you don't want to, And this is, by the way, why in Islam, in atheism, because it's not like a religion. Obviously, it is a religion, but what I'm saying is that it's not seen as one, or it's not really one like any other religion. You find a lot of people, the people always disagree. You'll not find an atheist that agrees with another atheist on everything. And this is, as we said, because they do not have a ground to go up for. And this is why when small atheists, small people who just entered atheism, who don't know anything about it, who just left like Christianity, who just left Christianity for atheism, they're gonna say things that a lot of the atheist scholars would laugh about. And this is what we always say in Islam for us, that when you don't have knowledge, you shouldn't talk, because you will say things that scholars will laugh about, because they're swag. So I just wanted to mention that on the side. Now that we've talked a little bit about atheism, let's go back to what the Sheikh said. I'm sorry this is going to be a long one. It already is. He said, in reality, according to own principles, nothing for us outside of genetics. Doctrine is homosexuality were genetic, it will not be deterministic. Therefore, influencing factors, other influencing factors must exist. But I'm not going to comment on all of this, because this issue with homosexuality, so it's a different thing. And as I said again, I'm not really that knowledgeable on these atheist stuff, because I haven't read that much in them. So, I don't want to also comment on the maybe misunderstands something or so. But this last speech was clear. He said the idea that addiction is merely a compulsory illness cannot be addressed through that cannot be addressed through guidance, advice, and admonition is no different from the idea that homosexuality is genetic and therefore should not be punished. I would comment on this, by the way. The same thing, if we, as an example, talk about I would say the same things for those who say that, how will you control yourself from pornography when you are not married, as the example? By the way, as we said before, marriage has nothing at all to do with pornography. Abadan. Getting married will not solve it if you have the issue. And there's a lot of people that are married who still fall into it. So the issue is not being married or not. The issue is not having a halal way to fulfill your desire or not. Because as we said, pornography has nothing to do with your natural sexual desire. This is what we mentioned in the last video I did on this issue, where the brother was asking for advice on this issue. We explained that in more detail there. But what I'm trying to say here is, I'm not trying to speak about that, but I'm trying to say, Yani, that this issue has nothing to do with your natural desire. But your natural desire is one thing, and this is another thing. The reason I mention it here is because this is like the one who said that being gay is a genetic thing, and therefore you should not be punished for it. Because it's not, as we said, it's not just like pornography. Pornography is not anything that goes outside of either marriage or even zina it doesn't come from a natural desire. And I'm gonna speak about why zina could also enter upon natural desire. First, we need to understand what is a natural desire asla. A natural desire, obviously when I mean zina, is I mean that a guy and a girl. Zina, or sorry, a natural desire is that a man wants, or that a guy wants to be with a girl. طيب. This is a natural, astaghfirullah, I think these cars, this is a natural thing that Allah Azza wa Jal made in us. طيب. And if we would not have this, then we would not exist here. Yani Allah made this a reason for us to exist. Like for now, so then as I was saying, if one cannot complete this in the halal, and he has someone that he likes, and she likes him as well, then of course they're gonna go and do it in the haram. Yani obviously not every time, but I mean if they cannot control control themselves, especially obviously if they're kuffar. This will add to it more, obviously. Not with kuffar, in this case I mean that don't have a deen asla. Because even Christians and Jews would control themselves obviously from this, or from being intimate without يعني هذا without يعني nikah here. So what I'm trying to say is that you subhanallah, subhanallah, I'm sorry about the kids and the cars, is that you subhanallah, you is that you as I forgot what I was saying, as in no. I'm saying if you're an atheist and you believe that zina is a normal thing, then that is going to be the door for you to fulfill your natural desire. Also, I mean, it's obviously it's wrong to say this, but I mean what we would call normal zina, which is basically just being with a guy with a girl out of love and stuff like that. But and not out of not I don't mean even the guy who would be with one girl for a night and then throw her away, this doesn't come under a normal desire anymore. Yeah, basically, I hope you understand what I mean. Now going back to being gay, and to being to watch for that, to any other sexual related deviance, all of these, as we said, do not come from the natural desire. They have nothing to do with it. They will affect it, but they don't come from it. The Sheikh said, and it should be noted that in Western context, when they speak about drug addiction, they usually link it to the claim that punishment is ineffective. Here, I actually want to speak about drugs as well. How could drug addiction be a natural thing? And I really don't understand how can someone be born with a natural desire to do drugs? Yeah, this is, I know we spoke about this. We spoke about pornography, and we mainly spoke about sexual deviancies or deviances in sexual behavior. But the same is applied to drugs. No one is born with a gene that makes you take Coca-Cola, you know, or what? Or any, Ralph, I don't mean Coca-Cola, but you know what I mean, right? No one is born with a gene that makes you take that. This is the same thing, Eddie. So apply what we said about sexual deviancies, about deviancies in these other things: drugs, alcohol, smoking. So, because it's the same thing in the end. I know some people will not understand what I mean with it's the same thing, but in the end, it is the same thing. In the aspect that we're talking about, obviously, it's not the same thing from every aspect, but it's the same thing from the aspect we are speaking about, which is the aspect of that it is a deviant thing that affects your brain, right? Then they affect your brain in the same way. They affect your brain in the same way. All of these issues that we mentioned. He said they do not speak about an admonition because it's considered a form of behavioral guidance. I think my tongue today said a lot of tongue twisters. Behavioral guidance, please. Of course, commented on this. Many others see admonition as mere rebuke and fail to recognize the compassion within it. Thus their perception of it is negative. He said, "We do not deny that an envious or sick-hearted person may wear the garment of a preacher, but that does not nullify the benefit of enjoining good altogether." This is clear as well. He said, however, those afflicted with arrogance consider every form of admonition to be pure condemnation, so they mentally categorize it as a quote unquote punishment. And the fact that I'm telling you that this thing is not allowed, I'm doing this because I'm advising. Like, this is adding to what the Sheikh said. I'm doing this because I want to advise you. I want good for you. I'm not doing this because I hate you. I'm doing this because I want good for you. I want you to leave that sin. I want you to not do that sin. If you don't know that it is a sin, then now you know when I told you. If you know that it's a sin and you need help to stay away from it, or maybe you know that it's a sin and you forgot or you fell into it, you cannot stop, or you think you cannot stop yourself, right? Then I'm giving you advice to remind you. And this is something that is for you. And this is why the scholar said, when you see your parents do a sin and you tell them to stay away from the sin, that is from al-bir, that is from giving good advice to them. Because we know that we're not allowed to speak bad to our parents. And that speaking bad to our parents is categorized or is called under or is labeled under is labeled under عقوق الوالدين. What the scholar said is that advising them does not go under that, because advising them, this is something that is good for them. This is something that you're doing for them, not against them. Yeah, this is something that goes under obeying them. And from obeying them is that you advise them when you see that they're doing a sin. A lot of parents that have kids that care about the deen, or So, and they don't. When their kids tell them, stay away from this, stay away from that, they think that they're insulting them or telling them that they know more than them. So this is all, as the Sheikh said here as well, this is all a form of arrogance that will lead them to this. Yani they're arrogant. How can someone younger than me, my son, that came from me, or that Allah made me a reason for him to also be here, how can he give me advice? No, this is a form of arrogance that has nothing to do with Islam. The Prophet والسلام, said, Al-kibru batarul haqqi wa ghamtun nas. Arrogance is that you are arrogant over the truth and that you're arrogant over the people. Yeah, this is the brief translation, not a literal one. Meaning that arrogance is that when someone comes to me with the truth and I know it's the truth, or at least I can't respond to it, I can't prove that it's wrong, then I say, no, I don't want to take this. وغمط الناس is because someone is less than me in society or something, like, how can you advise me? Right? The one who fears Allah Azza wa Jal, he doesn't care from whom he gets the advice, he will fear Allah Azza wa Jal. And I've seen this, subhanAllah, a lot with a lot of people who people may think are mashayikh. When I advise them and they see me that I'm, someone who is young, they're like, they start to look at me in a bad way. They're like, you're a kid. How can you advise me? Which is like, bro, if you can respond to me, then respond with proof. The fact that you're insulting me shows that I'm right, because if you would have proof that I'm wrong, you would give me that proof. For this is of the arrogance that we mean here. This is one of the problems that have spread among. This is one of the problems that has spread. Problems that have. I think it should there. It's one of the problems that have spread, not that has spread. I made a mistake in the translation here as well. Have spread amongst the modern generation, is among the effects of fathers withdrawing from proper upbringing. Again, this is also one of the causes of people going into these sins, is that their father doesn't care about them. I know it sounds a little. I'm gonna go into this part here actually, so because the sound of the street. I know it sounds a little extreme to say that, but it definitely is one of the main causes. Because if your father took care of you, you're not gonna be like this. You're not gonna be arrogant about the truth. You're not gonna, you're not gonna have a. You're not gonna. You're going to. The one who respects himself cannot fall into these addictions. The one who fears Allah Azza wa Jal cannot fall into these addictions, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us from those who fear Him. It is among the effects of father withdrawing for proper upbringing, since wise correction accompanied by hidden compassion is usually found in fathers. Perhaps this is one of the causes behind the phenomenon sometimes described as fatherless atheism, about which some books have been written. Among the most dangerous matters for the younger generation is reinforcing the idea of being a victim. I'm pretty sure the Sheikh means about like when you're addicted or so. Some people try to make it that you're a victim of this, right? Yeah, you are. What they mean is like, that society was pressuring you into watching porn as an example, but what you say, what you do when you, or what it leads to, this mindset of that you're a victim of it. It leads to you not leaving it, because khalas, I'm a victim. I cannot do anything about it. But when if you were in jail for something that you didn't do, you would try to fight for yourself. Try to fight for yourself to leave. In this case, you would actually be a victim. But that doesn't mean that you don't fight for yourself. That you don't fight to be free. Now, of course, I'm not comparing addiction to jail, but those people that do say that you're a victim and so you cannot do anything about it, they should, because even if they believe that you're a victim, you cannot do anything about it. That doesn't mean that in خلاص يعني I can't do anything. I'm a victim. No, if you're a victim, as I said, you'll be thrown in jail for something you didn't do. You try to fight, obviously, to get out. Yani. He said many of them find in this idea a way to reconcile with themselves after a long period of self-resentment, blaming themselves for not achieving something great, not attaining the grand capitalist dream, or not reaching success as portrayed on social media. Obviously, this is another issue we've talked about before. This image of success that is pushed by the capitalism, الرأسمالية, this issue of this view of success, this view that we've spoken about in our series about the West, this view that we've spoken about in our lectures and so on, this view that we just need to become rich and this stuff. This materialistic view, right? He said the victim mindset can itself become another form of addiction, a way to avoid confronting oneself. This is a very important point. This has really become longer than I ever wanted it to be. I'm sorry. I thought this was gonna be like a 20-minute one, but then adding the video of the sheikh, or the text of the sheikh, I guess that made me comment on it. يعني a lot of people, they because it's difficult for them to leave their addiction, to leave smoking, to leave porn, they try to make themselves خلاص, I can't do anything about it, so that they don't feel bad about it. And no, as we said, knowing that you're wrong, knowing that this is an issue, knowing that this thing is a bad thing that you should probably stop, that is the first step to leave it. And how can someone leave something when they don't know that it is wrong? So as we said, the first step to leave, or to fix yourself, which comes even before the dua, is that you know that this is sin that you must stop. And then you make dua based on that, because we said that dua is the first thing. No, I'm sorry, I add that obviously you need to know that this thing is a thing that you should leave, because otherwise you're not going to make dua to leave it. Because why would you make dua for something that you don't see is wrong, right? For you to leave something that you don't see is wrong. So when you realize this is a sin and you need to stop it, and it's not just the sin that will affect you in the akhirah, but it will also affect you in this life before that, right? Then in that case, we show you what am I saying? I mean, in that case, we can see that this is wrong and this is why we should leave it, and then we can make dua based on that, based on that this is a sin that I am disobeying Allah Azza wa Jalla. And this is why you say that a lot of the kuffar, even the kuffar that don't believe in the akhirah, they were starting to try to leave this sin. And a lot of the kuffar have left this sin. I don't know how, honestly, but I guess يعني Allah المستعان. يعني the kuffar, they as I said, most scientists, kuffar and Muslimin included, they also obviously disagree on how to leave these issues. A lot of them, yeah. One guy says this, the other guy says that, the other guy says this is wrong. And as I said, sometimes something might work for someone that might not work for others. But in the end, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the kuffar have taken steps to leave the sin, even because it affects them in this world, because they don't believe in the next world. I'm talking about atheists. They don't believe in the next world. Christians and Jews and so on, obviously for them this is sin as well, and they leave it because it is a sin, and not because it will affect them in this world. Obviously, this is the first thing that should be in our minds as well when we leave this. طيب. But what I'm saying is that even the atheists now, they're trying to leave it because it affects them in this life. Now, يعني it's not something to speak about here. But as I know myself now, I'm probably going to speak about it in like a minute or so. Because everything so far that I said I'm not going to speak about it here, I went back and spoke about it. He said that for this reason, the inclination towards what? Wait, I don't know what this word means. I'm going to look in the Arabic actually. What? ولذلك الميل oh, okay. طيب 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 طيب. فكرة أن الإدمان مجرد مرض اضطراري لا يعالج بالإرشاد والتنبيه والوعظ لا يختلف عن فكرة الشذوذ طيب we read this. لا ننكر أن الحاسد أو المريض قد يأتي غير أن المرضى بداء الكبر. I think we read this as well. فكرة الضحية قد تتحول إلى إدمان من نوع آخر. طيب this one طيب ولذلك الميل للتخنث الذي يسمونه مثلية هو هروب من دور المسؤولية إلى دور الضحية. He's saying that when you become feminine, I think is this the word to translate تخنث? يعني this is the easiest way to translate. يعني meaning يعني being weak, being a loser. Yeah. If this is, I guess, what we could understand it as. This is the way to, I guess, this is the way we translate تخنث in this context. I mean, in the honest, it's not the same in every context. But wait, sorry. This is why, by the way, things about the Arabic language, that one word can have a lot of meanings based on the curriculum. But we're not here to speak about the Arabic language. Inshallah, we'll do that at another day. He translated, or I at the time, I think I translated this with the AI. I translated it as effeminacy. I guess this is what the technical means. I've never heard this word before. So yeah, at the time I'd probably translate this with or I Google or so. So we said for this reason the inclination towards that, what we call homosexuality, is seen as an escape. And this is the important thing that I was saying. It's seen as an escape from the role of responsibility to the role of being a victim. خلاص, I don't need to leave this sin because I can't do anything about it. Right? And now someone who, as example, may Allah protect us, and you has a disease. Why is this bird staring at me? So as I was saying, if someone has a disease, you're not going to blame him for that, right? I mean, obviously, maybe it's like a disease that he got through a sin, in which case, obviously, he would be blamed for the sin. And he would honestly be blamed for his build on it. But I mean, generally, if someone gets a disease, you're not going to blame him for it, right? So this is how they see this issue. They see that the addiction to these things, it is that you're not to be blamed for it. That's just how you are. The same with being gay. It's like you're just gay. What will you do against it? Like, I suppose this is why they treat being gay like being attracted to or being attracted to the opposite gender, because for them this is a natural thing and this is a natural thing. And obviously this is not true. One is natural and one is gay. Subhanallah. So because you want to, because it makes you feel as you are responsible for it, that you need to get rid of this, that this is a mistake or that this is an issue with you that you can fix. Instead of that, because you want to run away from the truth, you start to treat yourself like you're a victim, so that you don't feel this issue anymore. And this is why I emphasize on the point of that You need to be aware first before you make dua to leave these sins. You need to be aware that it is a sin also. There is this thing that you must stop. And it's insane that we even say this. But a lot of people, they don't even see anything wrong with these stuff. They don't even see anything wrong with smoking or doing drugs and stuff. Or watching porn. Or being gay for that. For that matter. As we said, being gay. And I've never mentioned being gay under addictions, quote unquote, before. But I mean, it's not. I don't know if is it an this, I wouldn't say it is an addiction. Yani Allahu A'lam. But what I mean is that it comes from the same things. It comes from the same causes, like drugs, like smoking, like alcohol, like porn, and so on. It comes. Yeah, the root cause is the same. The root cause is the same. Allah barik fikum. And the same is with unnatural sexual behaviors and so. Like, you know, those men that are not men, those boys, those male people, those male human beings that you know, they sleep with a girl for a day and then they throw her, or they throw her when she has a kid or so. This is not a man. This is not normal design. This is not love. This is just, he just wants to, you know, use her. And as again, this is the same reasons for why gay people are gay, and what leads to that is the same thing that leads someone who is gay to be gay, or someone who watches porn to watch porn, or someone who does drugs to do drugs, right? What leads them to this? What leads those to that is what leads those to that. Is what I'm trying to say. He said the admonition often treats the idea at its roots. Because when I tell you fear Allah Azza wa Jal, and how will you stand before Allah if you die on this? And you could die while you're doing drugs. You could die while you're smoking. You could die while you're being gay. You know, how will you stand before Allah Azza wa Jal while you're with that sin? And reminding you about Jannah and the fire, and so all of these are things that will, subhanallah, do that. Yani that will that will that are fixed by this. طيب, inshallah Azza wa Jal. So as we said, the number one thing is dua. Oh, obviously, I changed my mind. The number one thing is that you know it's wrong, aslan. And then the number two is that you made dua. And number three is that you do this, is that you remember that what, yani, because now you've learned that it is wrong. You've asked Allah to aid you to leave it, and now you want to know what will occur if you don't leave it, and what will occur if you do. And what will occur if you don't leave it? Then we'll go to the fire when, or when, Riyadh billah. And what you do if you do, and what you get if you do leave it, inshallah Azza wa Jalla, you will go to paradise, and of course through your tawheed, and through the and through the and through the and through the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He said it may give a person motivation to strive to seek the pleasure of Allah and to remember the purpose of creation. I recommend, even though I didn't speak in that one about the pornography or addiction, I recommend to go back to my lecture. I don't remember what I called it on YouTube. I mean, it's not even uploaded at this point. It's gonna be, I scheduled this for like in 3 days or 4 days. The link between Tawheed and marriage, or I don't remember what it's something with Tawheed and marriage. But in that one I spoke about this, which is why we are here aslan, and I spoke about what that has to do with marriage. Again, as I said, obviously I didn't speak in there about pornography and so, because it has nothing to do with it. But I mean that you know, that will remind you of why we are here aslan, which is that first half part of the lecture. Boy, these dogs are so disgusting. Anyways, Uh, so when we remember why we are here, we're not going to, and it will be more difficult. And obviously, as we said before, and also I have an audio that I recently recorded, which is titled "How to Deal with Sins." That one as well, it speaks about this issue, which is when you remember, yani everyone sins, but how? But what do you do after you sin? Yani really, one of the keys to how your iman is, how your relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal is, one of the key things to that is what you do after you sin. Do you not care about and just throw it away and you're like, okay, that doesn't really matter? Or do you make it like a really bigger deal than it is, and you treat it like you left Islam when and that you cannot do anything about it? Or do you repent to Allah Azza wa Jal and pray and repent? So go back to that, inshallah Azza wa Jal. Go back to that, inshallah Azza wa Jal. Some of you might have noticed that in my audios, I usually only reference recent lectures or audios or so, which is because I usually forget what I said in my previous audios. And sometimes I even go back to my audios that I did like a year ago, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that I actually talked about this issue already. What is that? SubhanAllah. فالشاهد يعني. Said feeling guilt is not a defect except in the view of those who live like animals. Yani, as well, again, this is atheists who live like animals. Obviously, as we said when we talked about Dawkins, they have no morals, so they live like animals, as we said. And some of them things that they're just computers. That's why when you gave the example, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? When I've listened to some of the people speaking about addictions, so atheists, yani, I found a shocking amount of people who say you shouldn't feel guilt about it. It's like, bro, what? Like, you know, subhanAllah. Like, you're literally telling him the first way to fix it is to know it's not a bad thing. But then, well, why should I fix it? If it's not a bad thing, then why should I try to fix it? And then let me just do it, though. You know? Oh, I'm stuck. He said feeling guilt is not a defect except in the view of those who live like animals and expect no reckoning, except that expect that they will not be held accountable for that what they do, except expect that Allah Azza wa Jalla will not hold them accountable, that they will not be raised after they die, and that they will not be held accountable for that which they do here. Because as Muslims, of course, we believe that we will be held accountable for every single word that we say. May Allah protect us. How will I be always aware that I'll be held accountable for what I say and what I do, and then I do these sins? And again, this goes back to what this goes back to. هذا that you remind people about Allah Azza wa Jal. Remind people at the fire about paradise. We need to go back home because Salatullah is soon. But I still a lot of stuff to read. I mean, I didn't, as I said, I don't want to make this long, especially because, people's people's attention spans are like mice now. But by the way, I guess it's not an insult because mice are pure, and just so you know. But subhanAllah. I guess if someone wants to benefit, they can benefit. If no one benefits, I did this for Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah musta'an. He said in the sacred law there is hope and fear. We hope that Allah Azza wa Jal forgives our sins, but we also fear that Allah Azza wa Jal will punish us. And we balance between hoping that Allah Azza wa Jal will forgive our sins and fearing that Allah Azza wa Jal will punish us for them. As Allah Azza wa Jal said, قُلْ ادْعُوا الَّذِينَ زَعَمْتُمْ ويخافون ويرجون رحمته ويخافون عذابه. طيب. He said, in the sacred law there's hope and fear. The mercy of Allah precedes his anger. Allah, of course, Allah Azza wa Jal forgives all sins even if you die upon them except shirk. This is why I always, especially I recommend everyone to go to the advice that I gave to the brother that struggled with pornography like a day ago or so. But I spoke about Yani that your tawheed is the most important thing, because he also had an issue with the prayer Yani. So I told him the number one thing, even before he fixed this issue with pornography, so is that he fixed your issue with the prayer, because the prayer is not an optional thing you can have issues in, you know. It's not something you can be like, oh, you know, I'm not going to do it today because I don't feel that I'm in the mood. No. Where did the cat go, bro? We're going to search for a cat. I'm going to use that other excuse so I can record longer. I'm stuck. He said, Yani Allah Azza wa Jal forgives his servants, forgives the servant who repents and seeks for forgiveness. All of this plants hope and strength. How can its effect be denied? And this effect, as we said in the story, this effect of denying, that reminding people about Allah Azza wa Jal, denying that this helps you leave these sins, is built upon the saying that is built upon atheism, basically. Built upon atheism. As we said, even though a lot of Muslims might go from a scientific standpoint and ignore the standpoint of Islam, what Islam teaches on this. Lobster. He said, all this points hope and strength, how can its effect be denied? He said, it is mentioned in كتابه الأوراقي في أخبار الشعراء. Ahmad ibn Yusuf narrated to me from his father, and he said, Ahmad was there for his father. He said, when my father arrived in Baghdad, his companions sought him out and invited him and stayed with them, drinking and listening to music. His mother said to him, can I go here? Okay. His mother said to him, oh, my son, you see our large household and the expenses that fall upon you. If you persist in drinking, you will ruin us and impoverish us, along with the disgrace it brings you in this world, and the sin and the burden of sin it adds for you in the hereafter. In your hereafter. So he responded, he said, enough, by Allah, it will never enter my head again. And he did not drink again until he died. He said, this incident is an example of admonition joined with the compassion and its effect on souls. And this was his mother reminding him that this is a sin, that he will be asked about this in the hereafter. And the fact that he took an oath by Allah Azza wa Jalla that he will never go back to it shows the khas that he was sure. And that's what we said in the start. Make dua and then khalas, you're sure that Allah will respond to you. It's not I might not go back. No, it's I know I will never even think, I will never even consider going back. He mentioned another story, Yani. He said it remains to note that the recent legal opinion claiming that the one who abandons prayer due to depression is not required to make it up is questionable. As some people say, if one guy is depressed and he doesn't pray because he's depressed, he doesn't need to make it up. which is like, what, what does the person have to do with it? In fact, the thing that's gonna take you outside of being depressed is your prayer. It branches from this deterministic outlook, treating psychological illness as if it nullifies free will without a clear standard, right? Just because someone is psychologically sick or has a psychological disease doesn't mean he can't control himself. But yeah, obviously, if he's insane, we're not speaking about someone being insane. We're speaking about just someone having a disease, right? That doesn't mean that he cannot control himself. Obviously, the insane person is a different thing. But we're not talking about the insane, the addict to drugs or porn. He's not insane, obviously. No past fear will that goes down throughout history. People have faced hardships, entered a prayer. Allah said, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Seek patience or seek help through patience and prayer. Seek help through patience and prayer. Prayer is something that aids you, not something that is difficult on you. As the Prophet ﷺ said, أرحنا بها يا Bilal. He said for Bilal to pray, to calm them down with it. And the prayer, a lot of people take the prayer these days as a burden. It's not a burden, bro. It is something that will calm you down. You can take your mind off of things. SubhanAllah, a lot of us are guilty of this, and this advice to me before it is to anyone else, that خلاص we treat prayer as thing we do every day and we don't think about it. Which obviously we don't think about, are we going to pray or not? Obviously, I'm not criticizing that, but I'm criticizing that we don't feel the prayer. We just act, we just do the actions, we say the things that we say in prayer, and we don't think about it. Right? And this is not correct. We need to think about what we say in prayer, how we glorify Allah Azza wa Jal. When we recite Al-Fatiha, feel that Allah Azza wa Jal, as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, that Allah Azza wa Jal responds to us when we recite, and so on. Said, yet this psychologist who inspired this idea presents prayer to a patient as a mere burden. This is the catastrophe. Prayer is the thing that you must do and that you don't want to do it. Like a father, like an aggressive father telling his son to take out the trash. It's like, I'm not going to gain anything from this. It's going to make me mad. And so, well, a'yadhu billah. They treat prayer in this way. That it's a burden on you. It's a difficult thing. And you're doing it just to not have to do it anymore. As a burden like schoolwork, rather than as a connection with the one who created you, Azza wa Jal. Instead, he sees it as necessary for you to return to him, to complain. He's saying instead of what they say, the truth is that he sees it as necessary for you to return to him, to complain your worries to him, and not to, he means the psychologist, the kafir psychologist is saying he sees it as necessary for you to return to him, by you to return to that guy, and to complain to him, rather than that you do that to Allah Azza wa Jal in the prayer. طيب. Allah المستعان. And he's comparing this to he's comparing what they how they speak about the prayer in this way. He's comparing that to how they speak about the people who remind about Allah Azza wa Jal. He said Allah Azza wa Jal has described his book as a healing for what is in the hearts, and among that healing is being reminded of paradise and of the fire and of that if you do certain things that Allah will be pleased with you, and if you do other things that Allah will be angry with you. For Allah Azza wa Jal said that his book is a shifa'ul lima fi sudur, something that will cure the the hearts, And in the Quran, Allah didn't speak about, you know, or Allah talked about fire. He talked about the fire. He talked about paradise. He talked about what is in them, and and because this is what will aid us in leaving sins. This is what will aid us in fixing our hearts, and so Allah understands. So سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. I hope any people gain from this, whether if it's someone who is addicted, whether it is someone who wants to learn about addiction to help others. يعني Allah المستعان, Allah المستعان, Allah المستعان. May Allah protect me Muslims from these sins. May Allah protect the Muslims from sihr and magic. Sihr and magic. Wow, I'm so smart. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect the Muslims from sihr and from the evil eye. The jinn from evil jinn. Allah